Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are with Syl Sabastian. Have you heard of him? Maybe, maybe not. But today you're going to know a lot about him. And of course, the Moreness-Project, which, boy, oh boy, if you haven't heard, you're in for a treat because this man is so eager to help so many. And with his programs, with his coaching, as an author, as a poet, he does everything. And we're excited to have him back. Go to Nobelia.org and you can check out that portal there, the website, all about Moreness, what he offers for self-change, life-changing programs. And, he's here to help. So welcome back today. How are you?
I am well. I am well. I'm well. I had a fun not last night, the night before. I gotta go to bed. No, but I'm not sleeping. I gotta go to bed, not sleeping. Next thing I know, I go the whole night without sleeping. The entire night.
What?
Like, wow. Okay. Yeah. So then, it gets light in the morning and okay, now I've started a new day. I have a cup of coffee and everything's fine. I was a little dozy in the afternoon, but I thought, well, I'm not going to go sleep now because then I'll really mess up my whole cycle. So I
Yeah.
went to bed early last night and I essentially slept for 12 hours. So I feel great. I feel great.
Wow. All right. I'm glad to know you're okay. I'm glad you got that sleep. It's important, but wow, sometimes the
Yeah,
body
no, it was
just doesn't
fantastic.
want to do what you want it to do. So glad you're here,
Exactly.
raring to
Exactly.
go. Syl, tell us a
It's
little bit
just
about what you're doing.
what I'm doing is sharing a alternative culture, an alternative paradigm. We hear much criticism about what we live in. And we're always saying, well, this is bad, this is wrong. But when you criticize something,
Yeah.
you are trying to improve it, essentially, right? That's the idea. Sort of, you may not even think of it deliberately or consciously, but that's what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
looking to improve it. But some systems are so broken, so flawed, you can't improve it because the fundamental intent of the system is messed up, right? So superiority paradigm, this is the system that we live in. Hierarchy, competition, dominance, pushing others down, pulling others down, all about you making yourself look better, getting approval,
Uh-huh.
getting attention, etc., etc., etc. All that. It's all flawed. It's going nowhere, right? Because your happiness is dependent on others. And it's dependent on being better than others, which is relatively better. To simply be relatively better doesn't make you absolutely good or valuable or useful or happy or joyful. No, it's just relatively better.
Yeah.
Right? It's not intrinsically good. Yeah? So relatively better, it means nothing, absolutely nothing. If I'm relatively wealthier than you, well, your wealth is 3 pennies and mine is four. Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Absurdity. Absurdity. Huh? So now I think I've achieved something because I'm 1 penny wealthier than you. When we put it in terms of pennies or dollars, it becomes absolutely idiotic. And beside which, you might be a trillionaire and I am a trillionaire plus one. So what?
Hey.
Doesn't
Yeah.
make you happy either, right?
Nope.
So all of this artificial measures of happiness. Our
Mm-hmm.
entire culture is all about artificial measures of happiness. Now we shift that. Instead of saying, oh,
So
it's broken, let's
true.
fix it. No, let's make an alternative. If you want to do
Yeah.
that, that's okay. I'm not saying don't do it because, when you tell people they're wrong, they start to get defensive.
Oh, very defensive. Very defensive.
Yeah, and for no other reason than the culture tells them you cannot be wrong. Oh my God, this is like the biggest no ever. You must never look bad. Look bad, right? Look bad, not be bad. Look bad. It's astonishing. It's just really astonishing that this is what is so important, not to look bad. Look. Ah, man, where's the realness? Where's the realness? You've got nothing. Okay, well, now I look good. It's still a look. It's not a thing. It's a look. It doesn't mean you are good. You're looking good, but it doesn't mean you are good, right? So to be good, this is not an impossible criteria. Yes,
True.
and a lot of people think this. When I grew up, oh, to be good, it's like impossible. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I know zillions of good people. Yeah, all the people that I really know, all my friends, they're all good people. Joel, there you go. You got a good person, right? Family, all good people. Just because that means you can improve here, you can improve there, that doesn't mean that you aren't good. Yeah, you can always go good and a little more good. Right? It can just be good, right? There's no real quantifying to good. If you are good, you're good. End of story. How you apply that, your daily practices, your habits, that's a different story. Yes, because we grow up in a way where we've been taught to be not good. The superiority paradigm is all about not being good
Yeah.
because it's all about hierarchy and dominance. It's not good. Yeah. Collaboration is really what's built our civilization, despite the hierarchy. The look at your background. That's civilization representing behind you.
So true.
All of what's behind Joe that comes from
Yeah.
collaboration, right? There's no one individual. No one individual can do that on their own. Collaboration, right? Any of those projects, you might say, yeah, but the so and so built the bridge. No nonsense. So and so
Mm-hmm.
didn't build the bridge. There may be somebody who started the idea to make the bridge. All right, fair enough. But typically stuff like that, it's sort of obvious that we need a bridge. At some point somebody might be just that one will spark. Well, let's make the bridge. And we say, well, yeah, duh. Okay, and they get going. But if they hadn't said it, somebody else would have, right? So we
Yeah.
like this idea that, oh, yeah, it's always a collaboration. And when we understand the power of collaboration, when we collaborate, isn't 1 + 1 = more?
True. Yeah.
That's collaboration. If you want to teach your children something valuable, teach them that. 1 + 1 is more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = more. Always, always, always. When we are collaborating, what we get is greater than what you would have had individually, even if you add all of that up, right? Much, much more powerful, much, much more powerful. And collaboration allows us to do more. And this is where Moreness-Culture comes from, right? Not just from collaboration, but this idea of more. But more in terms of Moreness-Culture isn't just about quantity. Sometimes, but it's about quality. And when we say more, we're talking about
Yeah.
that which you don't have access to normally, right? And moreness, and you can get this on your own. You don't have to have collaboration to
Of
get it.
course. Of course.
Yeah, right. So moreness would be like the ineffable, the glorious, the fantastic, surprise, wonder,
Yeah.
adventure, yes, joy, thrill, yes, bliss, even any of the superlative
Yeah.
characteristics, qualities, ways of being, feelings, moods, all of that. That's moreness, especially that which you don't expect. Right now, when we think of typically, and I think I mentioned this before in one of the earlier podcasts, but when it comes to moreness, can always bear repetition because it's a new way of thinking, and new ways of thinking you can't just hear once. The first time, wow, oh, that's cool. Yes, all right, wow, brilliant. Oh, okay, cool. And then where does it go? Just goes out the other side and it's gone. It's just the way our brains are. So we need to hear it multiple times. I'll talk about the inner bureaucrats in a moment.
Sure.
So we need this repetition so that we can get used to this new idea because it is new. And our inner bureaucrats, that's what I call them. We have this whole little bureaucracy inside of us called
Yeah.
the brainstem, right? Or whatever you want to call it, the lizard brain, whatever.
The
That
lizard brain. Yes.
right, right. It doesn't matter, but it's
No,
there,
I
right?
get
It's
it.
there
Yeah.
inside of us. And that primitive brain, what is its mandate, right? To
True.
keep you alive. That's its mandate. That's what it is, right? When you look back at well, just go back into nature and you'll see this is what animals are all about. There's survival, 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 survival. But there's a flaw to that thinking. There's nothing in staying alive that says you must be happy.
Yeah.
We don't think about this. Well, I want to survive, I want to survive, I want to stay. But we don't think about it for staying happy. Okay,
True.
so you're going to survive and you're going to live in pain and misery for all of your life.
No, we don't want that. Come on. We want
No,
to be
exactly.
happy.
Exactly. But we don't even
Ah,
think about that. The mandate of your inner bureaucrats is to keep you alive. They don't care whether you're happy or not. No, it's to keep you. They will keep you alive even if you are grossly miserable and unhappy.
ah,
Yeah, it's quite terrible. I mean, you can just look at people in very miserable situations, right? Yes, there are people who do commit suicide, but it takes an enormous act of will to commit suicide, right? It's quite a serious business. We are very negative against suicide. But of course, if you're going to literally face a lifetime of misery, well, then it's the only sensible thing to do. But we have to override that. But let's not go there. That's not necessarily the point here. The point rather is to say that even if you are in a miserable situation, if you have some other tools at your disposal, like perspective shifting to multiple perspectives, thinking things through to the end, and if you have the tools like mood management, you can learn to you can learn to enjoy what is otherwise not enjoyable. It's a profound skill.
Hmm.
It's a very profound skill. But I want to stay on where I'm talking about with
I know
this
we always get
moreness.
distracted, but this is great. No, Moreness, Moreness,
Yes,
Moreness. That's what it's all about.
yes,
So
yes,
tell
yes,
us, tell
yes.
us, tell us. We are
Right,
here
right. So
all ears.
moreness, especially the moreness of the unexpected.
Yep.
Our minds are so limited really by our beliefs in the what we expect, the typical, the usual, and not just our beliefs but our agendas, our intents. And when we get back to those inner bureaucrats, their intent is just stay alive, stay alive. They don't have any more to that. That's it. It's very, very limited. But now, before I go into the moreness as an alternative, when we understand the inner bureaucrats, we really get to understand ourselves. Now, and be aware, the inner bureaucrats are a part of
Yeah.
you. They're not all of you. They're the inner bureaucrats. So you, the greater you, has to deal with your inner bureaucrats. That means what part is it that's dealing with the inner bureaucrats? We don't realize that because we sort of initially kind of identify with the inner bureaucrats. But if you literally look at your brains, how many do you have?
Hmm. One.
No, you don't.
I have more than one brain.
You have more than one brain, correct? Yes, technically it's one physical organism, but when you actually start to examine it, it's not just one organism, it's a conglomerate. You've got the hindbrain, you've got the medulla, the
Got it.
oblongata,
Okay. Yes, yes. All the different
you've got
parts.
all
Okay,
these.
okay. I'm
I
like, you
can't
just
even
got me
name them
confused.
all.
I'm like,
There's
whoa.
like a
Okay.
dozen of them. Right, your left brain, right brain, forebrain, So basically, it's like in our computers, right? Remember when
Yeah.
the first computers came out? Maybe Jill is not that far, but
No,
I
no,
do remember
no.
when
I
they
I got
first
my
came out.
first computer in 1996. I was just going into college,
Wow,
but
brilliant! So then
but
you
people
remember.
had
Then
them
you
before
remember.
that, but it was like,
Right,
wow.
right, right. Well, I think I had my first one in '86 when
Okay.
they literally were like very new, right? So in
Okay.
those first computers, they just had one chip, right? It was called the 8086 chip. It was quite fantastic. And then a little bit later on, they got to have a math co-processor, and that was like a big deal. Oh, you got this
Yeah.
fancy new computer, and you've got the CPU, and then you've got the co-processor, which only does math, right? Specialized just for math. And then later on, that went away and it got back into one chip. But now, lately, if you look at a modern computer, you've got a CPU and you've got a GPU, right? Right? Your graphics processing unit,
GPU.
right?
Yep.
Which
Hmm.
processes graphics and it's on your graphics card. But in most modern computers, because we're so graphics heavy now with all the video that we do, right? That GPU does more work than the CPU. It's quite amazing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a more powerful chip usually even than your CPU. If you don't have a modern computer, especially if you are, well, even if you're just streaming stuff, you're just watching Netflix or whatever, right? You need to have a good GPU, otherwise
Yeah.
you're going to not
Yeah.
be able to do that. So my point is about specialization. We've got that math coprocessor which is built into the CPU. It's a
Okay.
subsection of the brain, and likewise there are other subsections, storage subsections, and that's how our brain develops. Now, our brain over the years has did this. But what happens when we have old brain? Right. So now I remember when the 8086 got upgraded to the 8088, the AT it was called, AT
Oh,
computer.
okay. Got it.
Right.
Got
That
it.
was a big deal, right? The AT. The AT was like the
Yep.
first major upgrade. It was very exciting.
Uh-huh.
By the way, for those who do not remember, when you got a computer back in that day and you turned it on, you had a black screen and it was blinking. If you turned that on today and you got to say, my computer's broken, and you'll be on with customer support, my computer's not working,
Oh,
it's got
and
a
then
black
what
screen,
about
it's
the
blinking.
sound when it connected to the internet?
Right, right. Well, there wasn't even internet back then. There was
Oh,
no
yeah, you're
internet
right. All
back
right.
then.
I'm ahead of
Right,
my
right, right,
time.
right, right, right. So that black screen, you had to write your own programs. You got a little manual of basic, and you had to write your own programs. So when programs came out, it didn't take very long when they realized that people want to be programming their own programs. This is like nerd heaven to get your computer and program. But for regular, People, nope, nope, nope. In a word, the word processing program. Actually, wasn't Word. Word came later. I'm trying to remember the very first one. I think it was
Hmm.
like WordCraft or something like that. But the first word processing program, huge big deal. And then came
Okay.
Lotus. Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a computer nerd from back in the day, you'll remember Lotus 1, 2, 3, the first spreadsheet program. Absolutely revolutionary, changed everything. It was incredible. And then you added a database program. Those three, that was the holy trinity. The word processing program, the spreadsheet, and the database programs. Oh my God, it just changed the
Wow.
whole thing, everything. Anyway, very exciting. So you had moreness, right? You had this
Yeah.
idea, but that was profound moreness. The point I'm making is that our computers, they evolved. And then when that AT computer came out, to get back to the AT and why I mentioned it, that new chip, it included the entire 8086 chip.
Oh,
And they reduced it, yes, they shrunken it. I mean, the physical size was more or less the same, right? Actually, I think it was slightly bigger, right? So you needed a whole
yeah.
new motherboard to fit it in. But nonetheless, the 808 chip, the entire 808 chip, was now a small part of the 808 chip.
Mm.
Yes. And likewise, ever since then, right, each new chip included the old chip,
Oh,
which included
interesting.
the old chip, and
Okay.
right, and so on back and forth. And so
Wow.
why did we need to include the 8086 chip in the 8088?
True.
For redundancy,
I'm like, I don't know.
backward
You got to tell me. I
compatibility.
don't know.
Right. For backward compatibility.
Okay.
Because the programs that now used to run there, if you just have a completely new chip, a whole new brain, in other words, all your old programs are going to stop working. Yeah. They're still perfectly good programs. On the new thing, they just run faster. But if it's a entire new infrastructure, a whole new model, they need to be compatible, right? Otherwise, every time we get a new chip or we get a new brain, we have to develop a whole new language and everything. Right? There's no need to start from scratch. Right? That math coprocessor still works just as well, for instance, maybe just work faster, but there's not really improvement on it. And just maybe make it smaller and all that, more efficient. But math is math, right? So likewise with certain other things. And that's why we have our old brains, because they do need to run the old programs, even if
Wow.
the old programs are no longer useful or valid or needed. Yes. Now, if you go into your most modern computer, you have that command prompt, it's called, right? And what is the command prompt? It's a way to access DOS. And DOS is the way old language of the computers, right? So it's still there in some way. But think of it this way, yes? Our lizard brain, which is our survival brain, it's also our fight or flight brain, right? Even though, by the way, fight or flight are not the only two options. I've got a very wonderful article about this, right? The option of options. We tend to assume, because we've always heard fight or flight, there are many other options beside fight or flight, but that's another topic. Maybe we'll get into it a little later. All right. Now, the point is that that lizard brain, it is also our most primitive brain. Yes. And that primitive brain was essentially, because it's very limited, it's very unsophisticated, it doesn't know more options. So it's stuck in that limitedness of those two options, fight or flight.
Totally
Yeah.
stuck. It happens
Right,
a
right,
lot. Yes.
right. Now, when is that useful? Well, in my everyday life, I'm not really often in a situation, but every now and then, I go out into my yard and oh,
Yeah.
suddenly there's a cougar.
Uh,
Ah, panic.
panic, panic. Yeah, I panicked.
Right, right. Now I need my primitive brain.
Sure do.
Yes. Because suddenly I've got to jump this 6-foot fence, which otherwise I wouldn't be able
Okay.
to get over. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, now I can. And suddenly, oh, I can climb a tree or whatever, right? For a cougar, trees not all that useful, but still, yeah, it can be. It can be, but not necessarily, right? Not the best thing, because cats also climb trees. But at least you can limit their range of options, right? But anyway, my point is that we occasionally do need that primitive brain, right? when dealing with situations like when we're dealing with a cougar or something, or a snake or whatever, where it's
Fair.
primitive. Right? That's it. Our only
Oh,
options are primitive.
yep.
Yes, if I'm walking and I have a big gun, or I've got a big noise machine, or I've got pepper spray on me. All right. By the way, if you have pepper spray, don't spray the animal. Spray between yourself and the animal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't know
Well,
that.
why? Because when you spray the animal, now you get them all enraged, yes? And then they see you as the source of this, and they may attack, or they may just in blind rage and fury attack you. But if you spray between you and them, they all got sensitive noses. All animals have sensitive noses, right? More than us. The smell is very important to animals. So with that line between you and them, it's a line they don't want to cross, because it may get worse. You see? So it's very helpful to just put it in between. I mean, yes, as a last resort, save some of your pepper spray, and but still, just to by the by, a little moreness, little moreness. When you think about things a bit, oh yeah, well, duh, okay, right? So very handy. And also, an implied threat is much worse in the
Ooh,
imagination than the actuality. Yes.
yeah.
Usually for most creatures. So when you have this impliedness, well, come closer, they all know this is just threat. If you come closer, you're going to get worse. Okay, well, there you go. You can still back off. Come closer and it's going to get worse. Right? So they know this, right? It's just part of our primitive brain
So
thinking.
true.
So
Yep.
use that. And this is, now I'm trying to point out that we keep our primitive brain because occasionally it's needed. Now, of course, we get this muddled. We tend to deal with people the way we deal with the cougar. Yes?
Ooh, ooh. Tell me how we do that.
No, not good. Not good. Not good. Yes? Because
That
people
doesn't seem,
aren't.
that's like, yeah, that could be a little too aggressive. Don't think I want to deal with someone
Correct.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It'd be a big fight.
Or too defensive. Yes?
Yes. Oh,
You
yeah.
take in your average corporate meeting. If
That's
you
my
retreat
brother.
and, if you retreat, what happens? Yes, we
You,
think fight or flight. Why is flight not a good idea in many circumstances? Because the
mm-mm.
moment you run away, you trigger the chase reflex. That animal might not, that cougar might not even be hungry, but now you said this is prey, and it's in a bureaucrat say, oh, it's running away, it's prey, and therefore you must chase it. You
Ooh,
must chase it. That's why with bears, when you say, what they say when you come to a bear, yeah, you kind of
lions and
stop,
dragons and
you
bears. Oh my.
pause, and you
Ah.
retreat, but you retreat slowly backwards, right?
Okay. Slowly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I hope I never have to
Why?
experience that,
Because
but
you
why?
and the retreating slowly is to say, I'm not a threat.
Okay. Yeah.
So you the dominant, you the boss. I'm not challenging your territory. I may have wandered into your territory accidentally. Sorry. Okay, there we go. All is chill, right? No aggression needed, no stress, no escalation needed. But if you turn and run, the bear can't help itself but chase you. Why?
Ah.
Because now you prey.
Yep.
See? Even though bears do not typically eat humans, except polar bears.
Interesting. Didn't know
Polar
that.
bears, the only predator that hunts people deliberately.
Oh, you're
Oh yeah.
teaching me something new. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Polar bears, they see you, you food. A
Oh,
lion sees you, you're not automatically food. Right? We use the lion often as the example. Oh, if the lion wants to eat you, but it's very seldom do they actually eat people unless people have done something to the lions. Right? Those
God, if
rogue
you
lions
hurt
that
them
kill
or harm
people.
them, provoke them. If
Correct.
if you're
Correct.
just oh
Yeah, and now they're not
wow.
hunting you as for food. They're hunting you for revenge.
Oh.
Yeah, they're
So
quite
again,
amazing.
we have to
You know
realize
those
that we have
those
to deal with
stories of
people
the
this
the
way.
wild rogue lions that are terrorizing the villages or whatever, right? Those are instances of lions that have been injured and hurt by people and are now looking for revenge. It's quite
Got it.
fascinating, right? And we don't think of animals having revenge or anger, but they
Yep.
do. Quite phenomenal. Uh, anyway, now the key here is to understand that when we have these primitive brains in us, to get back to our computer analogy, why keep that old brain? Because we need it for backward compatibility, for those
Yep.
instances when we
Yep.
need the primitive brain.
Yep.
Yes, there
Mm-hmm.
are instances. However, we mustn't also confuse it and understand that psychologically,
Yep.
figuratively, if somebody's criticizing me, it's not a physical attack. Somebody's criticizing me, it's not a physical attack, psychological attack, which means I don't have to go into primitive brain and react. okay, I might not want to come and fight with them, but a lot of times people do. You insult some,
Mm-hmm.
especially, people who are a little bit more connected to their primitive brains. The
Yep.
first thing they want to do is come and fight with you physically. Dude, I was just criticizing your work program, whatever you were doing, your way, right?
And
But
now you want to
the
attack.
ego translates that and associates it with physical, right? So people get overly physical, overly stressed. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the key, right, is to understand this. However, and now we create new brains, and those new brains allow us to be different. So be aware of your inner bureaucrats and
Sure.
be aware of their mandate. But there's more
Sure.
to them. I'm watching
Okay.
our time. I'll wrap it up.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. Those inner bureaucrats are very much bureaucrats. They don't
Oh,
throw away anything. Right. Bureaucracy never throws away anything. They always throw. Why? Because it might come in handy.
okay.
Because here's the key point to remember. I'll
Yep.
close on this. The key point to remember about the inner bureaucrats, right, is that they will not ever throw away anything because it might be useful, right? Might be, yeah,
Might. Mm-hmm.
might be useful. And it's very important to be aware of that. And as a result, they store everything and they hang on to everything because they are extremely conservative. And the absolute core reason why they don't throw away anything, and the point I want to end on, is because they are not allowed one mistake. Their mandate is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
One mistake and you're dead. See? They don't have a second chance. You're dead,
No.
you're dead. There's no
No.
second chance. When you think about that, if your mandate is to not make one mistake, you have to be ultra conservative.
Okay.
And when we look at our politics and we see ultra conservatism, it is those
Oh,
people who
yeah.
are very connected to their inner bureaucrats, right? The inner bureaucrats have come to dominate. And so they're afraid of any change, any newness. Why?
Yep.
Because newness is risk. It's unproven, it's untested. I
Sure
can't
is.
make one mistake. I need proof, I need testing. So be aware when you are dealing with that, yeah? And in your own self. If you're afraid of newness, well, go out and test it, even in a small way. Provide your inner bureaucrat some proof of how this is going to be okay. Put them at ease, right? If you've ever dealt with bureaucracy, you'll know you've got to show, you've got to demonstrate, right? I want to build this
Absolutely.
new, right? They want to have proof that this will work. They won't just take your word for it. Never, right? But if you can prove it to them, no problem. Okay, all right, there you go, right? And sometimes their proof is bogus. Well, if everybody does it, it must be true. Okay, this is true when it comes to eating berries. Well, if everybody eats it, it must be okay to eat. Yes, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
so. Of course, not always. You may have a berry
Berry
allergy.
allergy, or yeah, get
Yeah,
allergic and vomit,
right.
or
But in general, if
in general.
everybody's on the ice, it's okay to walk on.
Yeah.
It's generally true,
Until
right? You
someone
may be
falls
the
in. But yeah, I get it. I
right.
get it.
Well, I mean, you may be the 100th monkey that tips the scale and the ice breaks and everybody else. But in general. So if everybody believes it, it must be true. Watch how people subscribe to that. And conspiracy theories, well, everybody believes it, it must be true.
Hmm.
Not necessarily, right?
Nope.
So be aware of the limitations of your bureaucracy, right? And when
Beautiful.
dealing with them, you can just provide them with instances. Well, so and so believes it. So, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then it must be true. So they're not all that smart, right? But they are very, very conservative. It's very useful to know, very useful to be aware of, right? Very
Well, you
powerful.
are very useful. You are doing so much. And
Thank
as we
you.
wrap
Thank
up
you.
today's show, tell us how we can contact you and some of the programs that you offer.
Yes. So I offer my main program is called Way of Impeccability. It is a profound, comprehensive, extremely sophisticated life change program that takes a minimum of 4 months. And it's very revolutionary, very different ways to do it. And that's the main program that I offer. Then I write books as well. But if you want to do a program, and it's a life change and a self-change program, and it changes everything, right? Not
Yeah.
just a certain thing. We're not just dealing with depression or whatever, right? It's everything. It teaches you how to be, how to think. It provides the tools. I don't tell you how to build your house. I just give you the tools. You build your own house.
God bless. Thank
That's
you
the main
so
thing.
much.
Nobelia.org/connect.
Always a pleasure having you here, Syl. Thank you so much. Hashtag Moreness-Project. Check them out, and we'll see you next week. Always a pleasure,
Yes.
darling. Have a
Yes.
fantastic day.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.